The Dark Ages were a time of silence, the kind of silence that comes when libraries burn and knowledge is buried, when fear replaces wonder. But what if that very silence was hiding more than just ignorance? What if it was hiding people lost in time, trapped where they didn't belong, screaming into a world that could never understand them? In 1413, a shipwreck washed up on the jagged coasts of Ireland. Among the wreckage, locals found a survivor, a woman no older than 20. Her hair was cut short like a sailor's, but her skin was untouched by sun. Her clothes made from fabric no one recognized. The villagers brought her to their priest, who questioned her in Latin. She answered, but not in Latin, not in Irish, not in any language spoken in the known world. But she drew. Oh, how she drew. She sketched towering buildings made of shining glass, birds with no wings, gliding above clouds, circles in the sky, the moon, the earth, floating beside one another. When she tried to explain, she broke down crying. One drawing stood out. It showed a man in armor like a knight, but his sword was glowing, and behind him, a glowing door. One word was scratched into the parchment beside it: entry. The villagers burned the drawings, called them witchcraft. The woman disappeared 2 nights later. Some said she drowned herself. Others believed something came for her, something she was trying to get back to, and her story buried with the rest. Around the same time, in the hills of Romania, a farmer's wife claimed her child had vanished in a flash of light while playing near an old stone altar. He was gone for 6 days. On the 7th, he returned filthy, freezing, shaking, but unharmed. He refused to speak for weeks. When he did, all he would say was, "There were lights and people, but they didn't see me." Years later, as a teenager, he told a priest he had seen horseless carriages, voices without mouths, windows in the air. He said he tried to speak to the people there, but they walked through him. He said they lived in the sky. When he was 16, he walked back to the same altar and vanished again. This time, he never returned. Historians will say this is folklore, that villagers invent stories to explain the unexplainable disease, trauma, disappearances. But some details don't feel invented. They feel personal. They feel like eyewitness accounts written in tears and confusion, not imagination. They feel like the voices of people who had seen something impossible, and no one would believe them. One of the most chilling accounts comes from an English monastery in 1429. A friar named Thomas wrote about a man who claimed to be from the year 2100. He was found wandering in rags outside the walls, near death from exposure. When they took him in, he asked for a phone. The friars thought he meant a relic, but the man described a small rectangle that could show faces and voices. He tried to draw it, trembling. It looked nothing like anything from their time. He begged to return to the city. When asked which city, he said, New York. That name meant nothing to them. It wouldn't mean anything for centuries. The friar's final note in his journal simply said, either he was a madman or we are all living in the past. That journal still exists. The ink has faded, but those words, they remain. It's easy to dismiss these as coincidences, misremembered names, hysterical villagers, lost pages of old books. But when the same stories echo from France, Ireland, England, Romania, and beyond over decades, all describing people from the future, with details far too advanced for their time, you begin to wonder, what if these weren't stories? What if they were warnings? Maybe someone tried to tell us. Maybe someone came back. And maybe we locked them away, burned them, buried them in our fear. And in doing so, we lost the proof that time had already been broken, because these people didn't travel with machines. They didn't wear lab coats or step through glowing portals. They were lost, confused, terrified, just like you or me would be if we suddenly woke up 700 years in the past. And in the eyes of a medieval villager, what else would you be but a demon The saddest part is not that these travelers were never understood. It's that they were never believed. And maybe, somewhere in time, their stories are still trying to reach us. Long before the plague, before knights and kings, before the ink of Europe's oldest books had dried, there were stories whispered around campfires, carved into stone, passed from dying mouth to eager ear. Stories that don't make sense. Stories that shouldn't exist in the time they came from. In the deserts of ancient Mesopotamia, a civilization often called the cradle of humanity, archaeologists unearthed a clay tablet that described what appeared to be a man from the sky. He walked like a king but cried like a child. He drew things no one understood. Circles within circles, a strange object with 4 wheels, something he called a beacon. The most haunting part? He told them he came from the land of falling light. And when they asked when, not where, he said simply, after the 4,000th moon. They thought he was speaking in prophecy. But to us, that sounds like someone trying to explain a year count to people who had no calendar. He was buried alive beneath the sand. His drawings, lost. His story, remembered only in the tablets that survived. In Egypt, carvings found in Abydos shocked the modern world. Among hieroglyphs, thousands of years old, certain symbols appeared that looked eerily like a helicopter, a tank, even a jet. Mainstream scholars called it coincidence, erosion, palimpsest, where old carvings get overwritten. But what if they weren't? What if someone centuries, even millennia, before Da Vinci saw the future? Or worse, what if they came from it? In ancient China, a tomb sealed since 200 BC was opened in 2008. Among traditional items, coins, scrolls, pottery, researchers found something else. A ring. But not just any ring. It had the word Swiss engraved on it. And the design? A miniature wristwatch. How? How could something like that appear in a sealed tomb from 2,000 years ago? The official report was brief. The artifact was dismissed, never studied publicly again. Some say it was a prank. Others aren't so sure. And then there's the most heartbreaking of all, the case of the red-haired stranger of the Andes. Tribal elders from Peru speak of a tall, pale man with red hair and blue eyes, who arrived over 800 years ago.